When the ending of psychological time is not approached as an idea, but observed directly in experience, it begins to reveal something that cannot be fully captured through description. It is not an event, not something that happens and then remains. It is the absence of a movement that was always active. The movement of becoming. The movement of moving away from what is towards something imagined. When that movement is not present, even for a brief moment, something very clear appears. There is no sense of moving, no sense of becoming, no sense of I was or I will be. There is only what is. But this what is not experienced as a moment in time. It is not something that begins and ends. It does not feel like a point between past and future. It feels outside of that entire structure. There is a stillness, not created, not maintained, but simply there when nothing is being projected. In that stillness, awareness is not moving. Thought may still appear, but it does not create continuity. It arises. It passes without forming a chain, without extending into time. This creates a sense of immediacy that is not based on intensity, but on the absence of division. There is no separation between observer and observed, no distance between what is happening and the awareness of it. Everything is occurring in the same field, undivided, whole. This is not a state that can be held. Because the moment the mind tries to recognize it as something, time begins again. A thought appears. This is it. And instantly the structure returns. A past is created. A memory is formed. A desire to return appears. And with it, time is reintroduced. But even this can be seen. And in that seeing, the ending is not lost. Because it was never something that belonged to time. It is not something that comes and goes. It is what remains when time is not being created. This shifts the entire understanding. The ending of time is not something to achieve. It is not a final state. It is the absence of psychological movement. And that absence can be present in any moment where thought is not extending itself, not controlling, not projecting, not becoming. In that moment, there is no path, no direction, no progression, only this as it is without time. And in that, something profoundly simple becomes evident. What the mind was seeking through time has never existed within it. It is only visible when time is not operating, even for a moment. When psychological time comes to a complete stop, even for a brief instant, something remains that the mind has never truly encountered while it was moving. Not because it was absent before, but because it was always covered. Covered by the movement of becoming, covered by the search, covered by the constant extension of thought into past and future. When that movement ends, what remains is not something new. It is what has always been here, but never fully seen. There is a simplicity to it, not as a concept, but as a fact. Nothing is being added. Nothing is being removed. Nothing is being carried forward. Nothing is being anticipated. There is no center organizing experience, no direction guiding it, no narrative holding it together. And yet, everything is completely present. Awareness is not moving. It is not observing from somewhere. It is not becoming something. It is simply there, without position, without identity, without time. In that, there is a kind of completeness that does not depend on anything. It is not the result of effort. It is not the outcome of a process. It is not something that can be achieved or maintained because it does not belong to time. It is what remains when time is not being created. The mind may try to return to it, to remember it, to recreate it. But each of those movements belongs to time, and so they move away from it. Yet nothing is actually lost, because what is being pointed to is not something that comes and goes. It is always present, only obscured by the movement of thought, and now that has been seen, not as an idea, but directly. The search ends, not because something has been found, but because what was being searched for was never absent. It was only hidden by the movement of time. Now, without that movement, there is only this, silent, open, unmoving, complete, not in relation to anything, not in comparison, not as a state, but as the ground in which all experience appears and disappears, without ever altering it. And in that, something becomes absolutely clear. There has never been a need to become, because what is has always been enough. After the structure of psychological time has been seen, its movement between past and future, its creation through memory and projection, another question begins to emerge naturally. What is the ending of time? Not chronological time that continues. Clocks move. Days pass. Events unfold in sequence. But psychological time, the movement of becoming, the continuity of the self through memory and projection, can that come to an end? This question is not about stopping time. It is about understanding its movement so completely that it no longer continues unconsciously. Because what continues unconsciously feels inevitable. But what is fully seen begins to lose its necessity. The mind has long operated within the structure of time. It has believed that change happens gradually, that understanding comes step by step, that freedom is something to be reached, that transformation requires time. But when this is examined closely, something becomes clear. Time has been used as a means of postponement. I will understand later. I will change eventually. I will be free one day. These statements create distance between what is and what could be, and within that distance, the movement of time is sustained. But what if what needs to be seen can only be seen now? Not in the future, not through gradual accumulation, but directly, immediately, without time. This shifts the entire perspective. Because if understanding is not a process in time, then the movement toward understanding is unnecessary. In fact, it may be the very thing that prevents it. The mind, by projecting understanding into the future, avoids seeing what is present. It delays. It postpones. it continues. But when attention sees this movement clearly, something begins to stop. Not forced, not controlled, but naturally. Because the mechanism of postponing it's no longer believed. The idea that something essential will happen later begins to dissolve, and with it, the psychological movement of time begins to lose its momentum. This is the beginning of the ending of time. Not as an achievement, but as a consequence of seeing that what is true cannot be reached through time. It can only be seen when time is not interfering. And in that seeing, something begins to come to a natural end. The movement of becoming, the continuation of the self, the illusion of progress towards something that was never actually ahead. And in that ending, something entirely different begins to reveal itself. Not in time, but outside of it. Outside of it. As the possibility of the ending of psychological time begins to open, one of the most deeply rooted assumptions of the mind comes into question. The idea of process, the belief that inner change happens gradually, that understanding unfolds step by step, that transformation requires time. This belief appears reasonable. It aligns with how learning works in practical life. Skills are developed over time. Knowledge is accumulated, experience builds gradually. So the mind assumes that inner clarity must follow the same pattern. I will grow. I will evolve. I will reach a higher level of understanding. These statements feel natural. But when attention examines them closely, something subtle begins to reveal itself. They are all rooted in time. They all assume a movement from what is toward what should be. And within that movement, the same structure appears again. The present is not enough. Something lies ahead. Something must be reached. This is the continuation of psychological time. But now it appears in a refined form, not as desire or fear, but as growth, as evolution, as a path. This makes it more difficult to see because it feels positive, constructive, meaningful, yet the structure remains the same. A projection is created, an ideal of what you could become. And then the mind begins moving toward it, measuring progress, comparing states, evaluating how far it has come, and how far it still has to go. But when this movement is observed without assumption, something becomes clear. The one who is evolving is still the self, the same structure of identity, now extended through time, refined, improved, but still based on continuity, still sustained by thought. This means that what is called evolution psychologically may not be transformation at all. It may be continuity in disguise, the self becoming a more sophisticated version of itself, but still remaining within the same structure. And because it remains within that structure, the fundamental patterns do not end. Conflict continues. Division remains. The sense of becoming persists, only now it is justified, even encouraged. When attention sees this clearly, something begins to shift. The idea of a path begins to lose its certainty. not because growth is rejected, but because the mechanism behind it is understood. The mind begins to question whether what is being sought can ever be reached through time, or whether time itself is the barrier. This does not lead to inaction. It leads to a different kind of observation. One that is not moving toward a goal, one that is not measuring progress, one that is not becoming, but simply seeing. And in that seeing, something entirely different becomes possible. A change that does not unfold gradually. A change that is not the result of effort, but a change that happens instantly. The moment the truth of the structure is seen, because what is false ends when it is seen as false, it does not require time. It requires clarity. And that clarity is only ever available now. As the illusion of gradual psychological evolution begins to dissolve, another distinction becomes increasingly clear. There are two very different kinds of change. One unfolds in time. The other does not. The change that unfolds in time is familiar. It is based on effort, repetition, discipline, and accumulation. You practice something, and over time you improve, you learn something, and gradually you understand it better. This type of change is essential in practical areas of life. But psychologically, this same pattern has been applied in a way that creates confusion. The mind assumes that clarity, freedom, or the ending of conflict can be achieved through gradual change. I will become less fearful. I will eventually understand myself. I will slowly let go of the past. These statements imply a process, a movement through time. But when attention observes this carefully, something becomes evident. The one who is trying to change is part of the very structure that needs to change. Thought is attempting to reshape itself over time, but the structure of thought remains the same. So the change is partial, surface level. It may adjust behavior. It may refine reactions, but it does not end the underlying pattern, because the pattern continues through time. In contrast, there is another kind of change, one that does not involve becoming, one that does not require time. This change happens through insight. Insight is not the result of accumulation. It is not built gradually. It does not come from repeated effort. It appears instantly. In the moment something is seen clearly. For example, if you suddenly see that a belief is false, not intellectually but directly, it drops. There is no process of slowly letting it go. There is no gradual movement away from it. It ends because it has been seen. In the same way, when the structure of psychological time is seen clearly, the movement of becoming, the illusion of continuity, the projection of fulfillment into the future, that entire structure can begin to fall away instantly. Not partially, not over time, but completely, because it is understood. This kind of change is not controlled, it cannot be produced. It happens when there is direct perception without distortion, without interference, without the movement of becoming. And because it is not based on time, it does not create further continuity. It does not strengthen the self. It does not extend the narrative. It ends something immediately. This is what makes insight fundamentally different from gradual change. One continues the structure, the other ends it. When this distinction becomes clear, the mind begins to see that what it has been seeking through time may never be found there. Because what it is seeking is not a better version of what exists. It is the ending of what exists. And that ending does not belong to time. It belongs to seeing. Now.